It's 2010. We're in Houston, Texas. More specifically, the 5th Ward. It's a section of Houston that was settled by African Americans after the Civil War, so we like that history. We love learning history. One of the oldest churches in Houston is the New Mount Calvary Baptist Church, and it is located in the 5th Ward. Now, in the church, community is a huge thing. I mean, people practice their religion, people make new friends, people get closer to their families, people even find love in these kinds of communities. In New Mount Calvary, the parishioners were growing, whether it be those who were born and raised in the church or new ones that pop up as time goes on. Another thing about the church community is that everybody knows everyone, and everybody knows all of the things that happen in those spaces. And New Mount Calvary was no exception. They had their little tidbits, their little pockets of drama here and there, and I'm talking all kinds of drama. Countless affairs, a fire in the church, missing funds, the suspicious death of the pastor's wife. Hey guys, I know it's been months. I'm so sorry. I really dropped the ball on that, but I needed to take my time when it came to doing stuff like this. I needed to go to therapy. I'm currently in therapy. There's so much more that I have to work on, but I want to spend more time on here telling these stories because I want to. I really want to. But I also want to tell the stories of people who haven't gotten their stories told. I mean, like, we constantly hear about Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, now it's Chris Watts, but no one's talking about the other kinds of stories. Everyone's worried about, like, the pretty people, the conventionally attractive people, but stories like this matter too. And in this case, oh my goodness, this case, we're talking about the nuance of, like, yeah, there are bad people out there. No, there are no perfect victims. So for example, the people that we're going to talk about in this case, I feel sorry for no one. Like, they're all guilty of something. But that doesn't mean murder has to be involved. So what do I know? Paulette Ross was born June 5th, 1963 in Camden County, Georgia. Her family was very religious and she was very active in the church, down to the point where she was like, I'm getting married to a man of God. I'm not, falling for anyone else. I'm not settling for anyone else. My husband has to be as deep in his faith as I am in mine. Now, Paulette had a couple of marriages. Her first marriage, she gave birth to 2 sons. Her second marriage, that just kind of fell through. Her sister Joyce Bingham also suggested that she go ahead and adopt a few kids because there's so many children out there that need and deserve love, and she felt like Paulette would be a good match. And it makes sense because growing up, Paulette's parents adopted kids of their own. So she's got some biological family and she's got some adoptive family. So it just makes sense. After Paulette's second divorce, her confidence took a huge hit. She fell into a kind of depression. Her sister Joyce suggests that she move to Houston, Texas, where she lived, to start attending church with her at New Mount Calvary. Joyce really wanted to make sure that Paulette was okay, especially because she was in a very vulnerable position at the time. So it was definitely devastating and it warranted a change of scenery, like starting over. Now, Tracy Bernard Burleson, or as he's come to known in church circles, T.B. Burleson, was born August 8th, 1975. And he, like mentioned earlier, is one of those who grew up in the church. He played drums, he sang in the choir, and his dream was always to become pastor, specifically for New Mount Calvary, but in general, he just wanted to become a pastor. Tracy and Paulette met in the church around 1994, and they hit it off really well. I mean, like, there was a big age gap. Like, Tracy was about 29, like late 20s, and Paulette was about early 40s or so. So it was a huge gap, but they were adults. They seemed to really love each other. Everybody exclaimed that they really loved each other. And I'm guessing they loved each other so much that they got married a year later. Like, they met in 94, they got married in 95. It wasn't like a huge celebration or anything. Like, Paulette didn't wear a white dress. There were no suits or anything like that. It was very casual, but it was still a happy, joyous day. Now, Tracy has a son. his only biological son, William Fuller, who was born on October 27th, 1989. Tracy had one marriage before Paulette with a woman named Sharon Fuller, and that would give way to William's birth. William did not have an easy life. I mean, he had sickle cell anemia, he constantly suffered from seizures. Like, oh my God, he needs constant care. And Tracy has William move in with he and Paulette around 2002. He was about 12 at that time. And I'm assuming that he moved in with Tracy and Paulette to not only get closer to his family, but also to seek better help for the things that he was dealing with. But now with their kids, the couple feels like the house is finally complete, both biological and adopted. Now, 2007 was a glowing year for the Burlesons. I mean, Tracy finally becomes pastor, Paulette becomes the first lady, the kids are in school, everybody is thriving, it's all well and good. But then you look at it a little bit closer and you're like, I don't think that's right. There was no agreement about Tracy becoming the pastor. His stepfather, who was a deacon at the time, as well as another deacon of the church, pretty much just put him in the pulpit and said, hey y'all, this is your new pastor. If you don't like the fact that he's your new pastor, then please leave. And excuse me, it's so funny because in the beginning, the members of the church, the congregation, they were told that they would vote for the next pastor. They never saw anything, no ballots, no meeting, no nothing. They just put Tracy up there and was just like, yep, that's him. You got a problem? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And it doesn't stop there, because once Tracy is elected the new pastor of New Mount Calvary, things just start changing. Like, he is overhauling different departments. He's sending letters to parishioners who either have not donated to the church or haven't donated enough to the church, pretty much saying like, hey, you give up this money or you go and you don't come back. It was also the same with the music. If you didn't like the music he was playing, if you didn't like the people who were singing, if you couldn't play the specific songs that he wanted, you're also gone. And it's crazy because Paulette, being the first lady, the pastor's wife, you would think she would be open and friendly, because that's typically what pastors' wives do, especially at the beginning of church services. They always open the doors, they're welcoming people in, new and old, they're giving them directories, they're doing all types of stuff. But Paulette was very strict. Surprisingly, but not surprisingly, things weren't good in the Burleson household either. In 2008, Paulette would be arrested for child abuse, both towards her other kids. I mean, like, she would hit them with extension cords, with wooden boards, but she saved a lot of her ire and her anger for William specifically. Now, I don't know if it's because he was always sickly and she thought that he was weak. I don't know if it's because he wasn't her child, though your adopted kids aren't technically your children either. I don't know. I don't get it. But she got arrested. But she escaped jail by being on probation and taking a few parenting classes, which, wow, the justice system succeeds again. Paulette would literally have William kneel on rice in the driveway. Now, you know, driveways and the gravel, very crunchy. That's the best way I can explain it. Very crunchy. So then imagine kneeling on like piles of rice, which is already pretty, it's like, it's sharp. It's pretty sharp on top of kneeling, like I said, on gravel, on asphalt. Girl, what is wrong with you? Also in 2008, as if it wasn't enough already, Hurricane Ike hit Texas, and it hit the 5th Ward especially hard. Like, New Mount Calvary was tore up. At first, the members didn't know what was going to happen, what they were going to do, but they ended up getting government funding to help fix the church. So everybody was delighted, absolutely positively delighted. But guess what? No one at the church saw the money. Now, Tracy, Paulette, and some of the other deacons in the church, oh, they pulled up with nice cars. They pulled up with new outfits. They pulled up with everything under the sun, but no money to fix the church. The people of the church urged for an investigation into what happened to the funds. And honestly, that was compounded onto everything else that was going on in the church. What else was going on in the church, you asked? Well, I'm glad to tell you. Rumors started going around about Tracy, the pastor. Yeah, he's messing around with people. Not just people outside the church, but people in the church too. So the rumor mill started, and people started talking about the affairs that he's been having in and out of the church. I mean, it gets to the point where Paulette catches him in bed with one of his mistresses because he wasn't hiding it. He was being very blatant with it because he felt he has the power to be able to do whatever he wants. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, so you're going to tell me that she leaves him, right? I thought so too. I was on the same wavelength as you, but she stayed. And that's mainly because she didn't want to give up that power that she had by being Tracy's wife, by being the pastor's wife. Now in 2009, Paulette catches Tracy in the church, in his office, getting a little nookie in with one of his mistresses. And I think that's when things really hit the fan. Like, it's from this moment on that everything just goes downhill from there. You remember when I was talking about the Tammy Kyler Chastity West case and everything? I was talking about how there are specific moments that you can kind of tell when everything just kind of goes to crap, to shit. And this is probably that moment. She finds him in the office and he is getting it on with one of his parishioners, and she decides, you know what, I've had enough of this. And there was already a campaign going around about trying to kick Tracy out of the church, out of the pulpit, out of the church entirely. And Paulette was like, you know what, you might be onto something. You might be onto something. So her whole goal was to go to the deacons that helped put him in position of power in the first place and be like, hey, this guy that you put in the pulpit, this is not the pastor. He is not the one that you think he is. You know, he's having affairs with people. He's being unjust. And in general, she's just like, just get him out of here. Just get him out of here, because what are we doing here? Now, soon after this, still in 2009, William ends up moving out of Tracy and Paulette's home and into the home of his caregiver, one of his friends. Her name is Tyone Palmer. Yeah, we're going to talk about her too. Tyone Palmer is 32 at this point, and she is William's friend and his caregiver. She helps him with his doctor's visits. She helps him with everything else. So he decides, I'm going to leave my abusive household and I'm going to move in with my friend, and I'm going to help her out with anything she needs help with. Because at the time, she did have 3 kids. So I don't know. I'm not an advocate for trying to take care of somebody else's kids when you're still a kid yourself, but I don't know, maybe the situation worked for them. I'm not sure. Now, back in 2008, William brought Tyone to his church, the New Mount Calvary Baptist Church, just to bring her around, introduce her to the family, things like that. And when Tyone and Tracy saw each other, that was it. That was it. They fell in love. I mean, it got to the point where he got engaged to her even though he was still legally married. And when Tyone approached him about this, he was like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna leave my current wife. I want you to be the first lady of the church. Okay. They even took family photos together. You remember those old school, like, I can't believe I'm calling it old school, but you know those 90s, 2000s pictures, the family pictures with the, I don't know how to call it, nostalgic backgrounds or whatever. They end up taking photos like this. It was Tracy, Tyone, William, and all of Tyone's kids. And they said that it looked like the perfect family photo. Like, she would keep some copies of the photos in her locker at work, and people would ask her all the time, oh, is that your family? And she would be like, yeah, that's my family. There's just so much going on right now. There's just way too much happening. And even though Tracy was brazen, even though he didn't really care, he still hid it from Paulette, this affair that he was having with Tyone. There's so many little pockets of drama happening throughout the church, but it all amps up to the point where the church burns down. Yes, the church remember earlier I was talking about a suspicious fire in the church? This is when the church burns down. New Mount Calvary Baptist Church burned to the ground, and nobody knew who or what set the fire. If it was intentional or if it was accidental, they didn't know. The parishioners had their suspicions, and it doesn't help that at the time, they were still wondering where the original funds to fix the church went. So now they're thinking that maybe someone started the fire to cover up the evidence that the money from the grant was stolen. The grant being the government funding. There were also rumors and stories about domestic violence, like Tracy would put his hands on Paulette, maybe because of the accusations of infidelity or whatever, but apparently Paulette also put her hands on him too. I'm not saying that anything is warranted. I'm not saying that anything is acceptable. Domestic violence is no joke at all. I will have some resources for domestic violence abuse survivors and those who are still dealing with it, both in the description, in the pinned comment, and also probably on the screen at the end of this video. Please, please, please do yourself a service. Do yourself a favor. Give yourself grace and remind yourself that you are not alone and that there are people out there who are willing to help you and who are willing to get you back on track out of the situation that you're in. Please be safe. There are also rumors of Paulette being abusive towards Tracy. So whether it was a back and forth, whether it be one got more than the other, it doesn't matter. Domestic violence is not the answer to any situation. Eventually, Paulette leaves the church. She's like, you know what? I'm just not going to deal with this anymore. And there have been stories of her actually moving out of the home that she shared with Tracy, but there's no confirmation on this. And guess what? It still doesn't stop there. 10 days later, Paulette is shot dead in her driveway. On May 18th of 2010, around 10:15 in the evening, Tracy ends up calling the police, and 911 dispatchers are just listening to this hysterical man being like, someone has shot my wife. I don't know who did it, but I can't see the person anywhere who may have done this. Once police were at the scene, it was gruesome, apparently. Tracy was on the ground, hugging and holding Paulette, kind of like the, please stay with me, you know, don't go towards the light, you know, people are gonna come to help you. When he was asked what happened, Tracy started going on this tirade of like, I don't know who did it, but I'm a man of God, and that's just downright evil, and I have to learn to forgive. I have to forgive, but it's so hard doing that right now when all of this is going on. Paulette was shot in the back of the head, and it appears that someone snuck up behind her and committed the act without ever being seen. Police perform a gunshot residue test on Tracy just to get him out of the way as a possible suspect, because when you use a gun, the backfire of the gunpowder is going to be on your hand. So they take like this swab and they swab your hand, they do a couple of tests or whatever, and if it comes out negative, you're in the clear. So thankfully for him, not thankfully in general, but thankfully for him, the test came back negative. So he was already cleared of suspicion of being the one who shot her. When asked where he was during the entire event, he said that he went to the gas station to pick up some snacks, and then he came back and he saw that Paulette was shot dead in the driveway. But here's the thing. Why is there blood on the front of your car then? Didn't think that went through, huh? So there was blood on the front of the car, but there was also blood on the inside at the driver's side. Unfortunately, there was not enough evidence for him to be arrested on anything, so they had to let him go. When he was asked if he knew anybody that would want to hurt them or hurt Paulette or anything like that, he was talking about the fact that like, oh, you know, my congregation doesn't really, you know, like me. They've got a vendetta out against us, and it wouldn't be surprising if it was one of them, trying to throw people under the bus. Of course, when you give a response of like, there are multiple people that it could have been, that could have been the culprit, well, you got to round them all up and ask them questions. And because Tracy said that some of the congregants were some of the ones who could have potentially had a motive to kill Paulette, the detectives start questioning everybody. And when he asked for their story, oh, do they have a story to tell? So they start telling the detectives a lot about his sordid past and about how rough he was around the edges when it came to his congregation, and also the fact that he was seeing a lot of people in the church. When asked for specifics, they pointed out one woman that was his number one, which is Tyrone Palmer. Tyrone, the one that just got introduced to the New Male Calvary Church by William? Yeah, her. Detectives end up going to Tyrone's home just to question her about the affair that she's having with Tracy and if she ever had any ill will towards Paulette. And they also asked her more questions about the affair because Tracy never disclosed the fact that he was seeing someone else. So Tyrone opened up and she was like, that's the only thing I'm guilty of, is having an affair with a married man. Now, a year before the murder, William started making claims that Tracy and Paulette were stealing money from him, and that was the reason why he moved out and moved in with Tyrone, which makes sense. I mean, if you are alleging that your parents are stealing from you and you're also being abused by one of your parents, it makes complete sense as to why you wouldn't want to be there. She said, there's nothing pointing towards me when it comes to pulling the trigger. I did not know anything about whatever went on, and I don't know what her exact alibi was, but she was also ruled out as a suspect. So now the police are at a dead end. Paulette's funeral was held about a week after her death and everything, and the detectives actually show up to pay their respects, but they stood up at the front and they were like, we're gonna get our man. And they were pointing directly at Tracy before they started scanning the rest of the room to not make it as suspicious. But they were like, no, we're gonna get the person that did this. Trust and believe. You ain't got nothing to worry about because we're on it. Now, this secret affair has been upsetting everyone, but someone specifically that's being upset the most about this is William Fuller, Tracy's son. And you want to know why? William also had a crush on Tyrone, and he knew that his dad was a womanizer. William to Tracy was like, listen, I know you're a womanizer, but I'm not gonna let you mess up this woman or our possible relationship because you wanna be weird. They end up coming back around to Tracy to question him again because, like I said earlier, there was blood on the front of his car and there was blood on the inside of the car too. And they asked about his alibi again. They also remarked that they went to that gas station. They checked the times. The gas station was closed by the time that Tracy went out to go get snacks. And so Tracy starts with the,
you see, what had happened was,
oh, well, I knew I had to have an alibi. So I didn't get snacks. I just went to the gas station. I saw it was closed and I came back home. But I lied and told y'all that I had to get snacks because I knew we needed to have an alibi. But like, I didn't do this, I promise. The next person police end up speaking with is William. He's been living with Tyrone, the woman of his father's affections, and apparently of his affections too. And there was this mounting suspicion that maybe William committed the murder because of the abuse he suffered from Paulette. William claims, I was all the way on the other side of town, and like, I had to have my caregiver come pick me up and bring me back over here. He says that she, Tyrone, was the one to inform him of everything that was happening. Tyrone confirms this as well. She's like, yeah, you know, I had to go pick him up because he was across town. Neither of us had anything to do with this. We're both scot-free. Not long after the murder, Tracy moves in with Tyrone and William. Remember what I said earlier about this is when things start going downhill? Well, now we're going even deeper. Tracy and William get into this huge fight where William ends up leaving to stay with a different friend. The argument was over the fact that like, Tracy wasn't the only one sleeping with Tyrone. William was sleeping with her too. So there's a huge argument and a huge feud between the two of them. And honestly, there is no piece of ass that is worth any of this turmoil. I know how to make dollars, but I can't make sense of this. Police end up getting an anonymous call, and the caller claims, well, I know what happened to Paulette. I know who killed her. It was William. With that, they end up picking up William again, bringing them to the police precinct and questioning him fully. And William says, you know what? I'm tired of hiding this. I wanted to turn myself in the minute it happened, but I decided to play it safe to keep my father safe. What did your dad do? that he hasn't already done. He says, hey, I didn't even want to commit the crime. I didn't want to do it. But this has come from months, almost years, of Tracy badgering him to kill Paulette. He told the story of how his father wanted Paulette dead so that way he could avoid a divorce. Because that doesn't sit well in the church, especially with his social standing. It would tarnish his image, and he really, really enjoys the perks of being a pastor. Tyone ends up giving Tracy an ultimatum of like, either you leave her or I leave. And Tracy didn't want that either. So he's quick to go to Paulette and be like, oh, I'm leaving you. Like, trust and believe I'm gonna leave you. But Paulette said, you can go ahead, you could do that. But then I am gonna go to the deacons and I'm gonna let them know everything. I'm gonna let them know that you were the one that started the fire in the church, that you were the one that took the funds from Hurricane Ike, that you are the culprit behind all of this madness. And Tracy said, you know what? What's one more crime? What's one more crime to me at this point? Because he's already committed every other crime in the book. Paulette also had insurance money, but he wanted that life insurance policy. And he told William, hey, if you do this, I'll get the money and then I'll give you a little bit of change, you know, for your pocket. I know this is 2010, but giving somebody $2,000 out of a $100,000 life insurance policy seems pretty freaking cheap to me. And he also said, hey, on top of the money, you can sleep with Tyone whenever you want. Not only was there pressure from his dad, but there was pressure from Tyone too. He's sitting up here talking about if you go ahead and you do this, we can have a beautiful life together. I'll even leave your father for you. William ends up finally agreeing to this. You know, he's just like, you know what? I just want to get this over with so they can leave me alone. And you know what? Since my parents have been taking my money anyways, now maybe I'll have something that I can put towards my name. And this story completely confused the detectives because, like, who was going to end up with her then? And William says, I don't know, but somebody was going to end up with her. William then explained to the police that Tyone acquired the gun from one of her co-workers and then gave it to him to commit the crime. Tyone drove him close to Tracy and Paulette's house. He walked the rest of the way there, and once he got inside, he heard that Tracy and Paulette were already arguing. I mean, like, once he pulled up, they were arguing. But once he got inside, Tracy took a break and he said, you know what, I'm not doing this with you. And he goes inside and he goes up to William like, you got the gun? All right, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep arguing with her. You come out behind her, you deliver the final blow. And so that's what happens. Tracy goes back out, they get into an argument again, he and Paulette, and then William comes from inside the house, goes around Paulette, obviously she didn't see him, and he delivered the fatal blow to the back of her head. Afterwards, he's like shell-shocked. Is a shell-shocked like past tense, or is a shell-shook past tense? He was stuck. Let's say that. He was stuck. And his father had to go up to him and shake him and be like, hey, you gotta go. I'm gonna call the police, so you gotta go. And so Tyone ends up taking William again. They drive off. William throws the gun out of the window onto an embankment. And Tyone takes William to her cousin's house in order to help him get cleaned up and change his clothes. Now, the gun was sitting near a river. It never went into the water. It was sitting on the outskirts of it. And William says, you know what? I can even take you to where the weapon is because I didn't get out the car to check and see if it was in the water. I just kept going. And lo and behold, they found the weapon. And of course for this, William is arrested and charged with capital murder. Since William implicated both his father, Tracy, and his caregiver, Tyone, they went up to Tyone's house where Tracy was currently staying and arrested them both on the account of capital murder. They arrested the both of them and they were wearing matching pajama sets. You are so quick to try and move on with your life that you're sitting up here in another woman's house wearing matching pajamas after you just had your son kill your wife. Y'all, Tracy sends a message to his congregation like, I'm sorry that I cheated. I'm sorry that I had an affair, but I promise you, I did not kill my wife. Okay, but like, here's the thing. You planned on it. You pestered your son to do it. And just because you weren't the one that pulled the trigger, you were behind the whole thing. William took a plea deal. Testify against both his father and his caregiver slash lover in exchange for a 20-year sentence. September 2011, Tracy's the first one to go to trial. Prosecution pretty much mirrored the same reasoning that William had against his father, Tracy. Paulette was going to leave him. She was going to oust him to the entire church and get him removed as pastor. In order for Tracy to shut Paulette up, continue being the pastor, and to collect on that $100,000 life insurance policy, he masterminded the murder of his wife. And he also was going to use that money to potentially fund his marriage to Tyone. Prosecution also believed that Paulette had information about the church fire and that Tracy was the one that orchestrated the whole thing. Like, she was really about to walk up to the deacons like, you want to know something about y'all's pastor? You want to know something about that man? Do you know that he set the church fire? Do you know that he was sleeping with women inside the church, outside the church, all up around the church? You gonna let this man preach in your damn pulpit? You gonna let this man preach to your people? Your pastor did that. He set that church on fire to collect on y'all's insurance money for the church. They also found cell phone data that put Tracy at the church at the exact time of the fire. And his excuse? Oh, that was my son. Finish the story, Eve. Finish the story. Now, Tracy's defense is wild. Like, his defense team was crazy. They said, Tracy didn't kill Paulette. His son did. Yeah. William saw that Tracy and Tyone were having an affair, and because he wanted to be the one with Tyone, he committed the murder and then framed his father to get him out of the picture so that way he could be with Tyone. None of this makes sense, but I highly, highly, highly doubt that a kid would frame their parent for one of the worst crimes of all just for some. I'm sorry, I'm trying to not cuss a lot this video. I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be good. But it's simple as that. Why would you give up your life? Tracy says the same sorry thing that he already told the congregation. I may be a cheater. I may be unfaithful, but that's the only crime I've committed. A deacon also testified at trial against Tracy and was saying that Tracy had mumbled to himself. No, you know what? Not even mumbled to himself. He said it under his breath after the church fire of like, well, that's one less thing to get rid of now. When William got on the stand, he testified that like his father was just persisting and hounding him and being like, you know, you want to do this, bruh. I'll give you money. I know you hate her as much as I hate her, so do this for me. And obviously Tyone did the same thing, but we're going to get to that in a second. It got to the point where Tracy was putting his hands on his son. William would be like, no, I'm not going to do it. And Tracy would hit him for denying him that. And then he would come back with a sob story of like, oh, I just want to live a peaceful life. Just you, me, and Tyone. Like, Paulette is the only one that's in the way of us having a good life. William also said that when Tyone started putting pressure on Tracy to leave Paulette, Tracy would end up saying like, all right, chill, damn, give me some time. I just committed one crime. What else do you want me to do? Like, give me a second before I commit another crime. Like I said, Tracy promised William about $2,000 out of the $100,000 life insurance policy. And I know things in the South are relatively cheap, especially back in 2010. But again, $2,000 from $100,000, that's mad cheap, especially if you're hiring me to do your dirty work and kill somebody that you don't like. That's crazy. But you know what? They found out it wasn't even $100,000. She was only getting $30,000 in life insurance. $30,000. And you did all this for what? The jury deliberates. And what does he get? Guilty of capital murder. Wow, we didn't see that coming. Now it was Tyone's turn to go to trial. Tyone denied any involvement with anything. She, just like Tracy, was like, the only thing that I'm guilty of is being a woman in love with a married man and having an affair. The defense team just said, well, she's just not guilty. The defense team literally said, well, she's just not guilty. That was their whole argument. She just wasn't guilty. William also testified at Tyone's trial because, again, he got a plea deal for testifying against his father and against Tyone. But guess what? When he walked into the building, you could see a tattoo, a new tattoo on his neck with Tyone's name. So it really was worth it, huh? It's gonna be a bitch to get that thing removed. I know it is. Unless he's proud. I mean, he was proud enough to get the tattoo. I don't know. Unlike in his father's trial, William is very, I don't know how else to say it, but unhinged. Like, he's a lot more upset in this trial. One of the questions that the defense team asked William while he was on the stand was like, okay, so you say that your father is this evil, horrible human being. Why would you introduce he and Tyone to each other if you say that this is what he's like, why would you introduce the two of them together? And I guess William didn't like that question at all because he flipped out. He was mad. He was cussing. He was doing everything under the sun. And like, I feel like if he didn't already take that plea deal, they would have given him more time. It's also believed that William's crash out was the downfall of the prosecution's team against Tyone. In the end, Tyone is found guilty of evidence tampering, conspiracy, things like that, and she's given 7 years with a 10-year probation period run concurrently, so literally at the same time. And she just finished probation in 2017. I've seen some things that are like, yeah, she's living a better life now and everything, and I'm hoping so. Because, like, yeah, Paulette was the victim, but, like, I can't imagine my mom, again, she's got 3 kids. I can't imagine, knowing that my mom went to jail because she helped her boy toy kill her fiance's wife. That doesn't make any sense. Like, again, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. William's plea deal afforded him 20 years in prison, and actually, he's probably going to be out within the next couple of years. Like, yeah, it's been that long. So he's going to be out in a few years. And Tracy T.B. Burleson, the man, the myth, because he's not a legend, he got sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for his role in the lies and the scams and the affairs and just the downright dirty things that he's done for power, for control, for a piece of ass, and for money. I want to thank you guys again for coming to check out my channel and everything. I want to try and be more active this year. I'm making that promise to myself. I'm hoping I can keep up with that promise, but that's my promise to myself right now, is that I want to be more active on here. Even if it's not like, every couple of days, I want to start being on a more consistent schedule of like posting maybe once a week. So we'll see. I'll do my best. Also, I thought of a cute little name for you guys, Evenings, because my name is Eve. Evening, that's so cute. I don't know, you can tell me if it's cute or not. If not, then I'll just drop it entirely. So I don't know how you guys felt about that story, but I'm telling you right now, I am tired. I am exasperated. I am tired. As I said, I'm gonna have resources for domestic violence, both victims and survivors, because you're never alone, and there are plenty of people out there who want to give you the help and who have the compassion to hear your story. And I think that's what's most important in anything, is that people hear you, your story, and want to help. Yeah, that's all I have to say for today, other than the fact that like this was a crazy case. But for now, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I love you. Bye.